All right, welcome to another episode of Survival Mode. And, I had asked Nikki Sacco to come back. If you haven't tuned into podcast number 27 to hear her awesome story, I definitely encourage you to listen to that one first. We've talked about so many topics. I loved her energy and going through such a challenging time with breast cancer. We really started to talk about, this is helpful. All these tips are really helpful for anybody going through any challenge, no matter what it could be or what it is, or it could be just having a bad day. And so we decided to come back on and talk a little bit about some strategies or methods for staying positive. We really want to really put that out there, and some of the strategies we both used. So, Nikki, welcome back.
Oh, I'm so happy to be back.
So, you know, I know we were talking a little bit before the show. So, some of the things that you did, you went through a hard time for sure,
But
and you alluded to that you had some downtimes, which is 100% normal, and we all go through that. So tell me a little bit about some of the strategies or some of the things you did that you found very, very helpful for you to really kind of stay positive or to feel better for sure.
yeah, so like the first part of my cancer journey um was mostly getting outside, a lot of hiking. Um which I did, I did that from day one till, I mean, I'm still doing it now, right? 7 weeks post-op, I'm still nothing crazy. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You do a easy trail, but there's something you're outside in nature and you're getting the sunshine, you're getting your vitamin D, away from the chitter chatter of everybody and um, lost, like, those who wander, right? So there is something to it, right? There really is.
There
And
is. Yeah.
yeah, um,
Yeah,
you know,
I did that as soon as I got out of the hospital, which was the day after my surgery. I was shocked. I asked my surgeon, like, what kind of activities? Like, you go for walks and stuff like that. Because I wanted to get back into movement because I felt like staying still was really kind of left me feeling down. And one of the things too, and for anybody that's feeling a little down, feeling a little blah or depressed or whatever, like sometimes getting out of bed is a challenge, or sometimes just doing something. So getting outside is huge in any form of movement, whatever you could do. You know what I mean?
and it's the first thing that that's everybody's go-to, right? Whether it's, you're having a bad moment at work or you just had surgery. What do? You walk away from whatever it is that's causing the stress at that moment, right?
Yep.
Um, and so like you literally walk it off, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was the second day after this last surgery, which was my biggest surgery. That was the 14-hour surgery.
Mhm.
The first thing I did was walk, right? That's like the first way of starting to heal, is to get up and move. um,
Yeah. And say for example, like, you had surgery, you do that. Say you broke up. I had a friend who broke up, had a bad breakup with his girlfriend. And I saw him we got on a Zoom the other day, and he's jacked, but he was knocking out push-ups, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
to overcome it, like he's
Oh,
like the proverbial in the prison knocking out push-ups and
yeah,
pull-ups. And I'm like, dude, that's fantastic. Like you totally motivated me, you know?
right, right, right. Yeah,
So,
and because it's your go-to, like you have to move. It's everything that, even with the kids, right? When the kids get like just nuts, right? Especially like the end of the day, they don't want to settle down. They don't want to go to bed.
yeah.
When they're little, especially, like I would put the baby, she's 3 now, but put her in the stroller and we would go for a walk, right? It's just
Yeah.
like that. it's really the first step in chilling out.
Yeah. And we do that with the dogs. Like my dog like starts running around in circles. I'm like, listen, I gotta take this guy out. He's like losing his mind. So I love that. Some sort of movement. And I know that you mentioned something that we often forget about,
Yeah.
and it's so essential, is breathing.
Yeah. It's funny, right? So I was saying, when we were talking beforehand, we're big MMA people. So when you're sparring and you're uncomfortable, which also goes with the cancer treatment, right? Or anything that makes you sad or unhappy, you're uncomfortable. And so what do? You either hold your breath or you learn to breathe through it. And when you're successful at getting through an MMA move, you're technically breathing through it. And when I made it through these, my radiation treatments are mostly breathing. You're in there, you're not in there long, but like it's breathing. You have to hold your breath for so long and so on, so forth. But when you think about it, even when you want to have it out with somebody, but
Yeah.
you bite your tongue, you're
Yeah.
technically holding your breath. It's all about breathing, right?
It is.
And it made
I've
it,
done it a bunch of times. And
yeah.
so I've spent 45 minutes in an MRI machine,
Ugh,
and I'm like, my head's in a cage. I'm like this, and I just sit there and I'm just like focusing on the breath.
yeah.
And one of the things that I found is when I'm down, when I'm not feeling mentally okay, I often notice that I'm not breathing well. Like I'm breathing, don't, because I'm alive, but I'm just like it's shallow. It's like, oh. But then when I recognize that, I'm like, okay, easy, like some, breathing out. Like the Navy SEALs do the box breathing. They inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4.
I do. I love it. I've used it and it's great.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. So it's inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4.
Right.
So that's a great tip. And even like yoga practices, like I've done Bikram yoga, they do this quick diaphragmatic breath at the end. Like there's so much data and research on just breathing. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
Sunday night I went to a yoga class and I'm not 100% yet, right? Um, there's just different things where like different movements where my body's just not there yet. But I did go to the yoga class and I knew I couldn't do everything. And the instructor was awesome because I said to her, I love breathing. Like, this is my thing now, right? Because I know it works. And she's like, okay. And as the moves were going on and she saw me having a hard time, she would just give me different breathing techniques to do while everybody held the pose I could not do. And it was just so calming. I was outside, my feet were planted on the ground. I'm doing this breathing. I'm watching the sunset. And I was like, man, this is heaven. Like it felt great. I left there feeling happier than I felt in quite a while. Like it was just something that I cannot wait to go back to and do again. So yeah,
I love yoga. It's something that is a practice. It teaches you a lot. There's so many different benefits to it, and there's different styles and types that are great. And one of the things that I often say to myself and I share a lot is a lot of times when you're not feeling so hot, you just don't feel like doing it. Anything. And I'm a big fan of just do it anyway.
yeah.
Lately I switched my runs. I was doing them in the afternoon, evening time, more in the evening time. And my girlfriend was saying, you seem to have a little bit more time in the morning and you're kind of like, you know, so I moved them to the morning, and I'll tell you, I get up and I used to say this when I did lives. I would do a live when I'd walk back, and
Mhm.
I pretty much every day I would say I didn't feel like doing it, but I just did it anyway. And then when I was done, I was so glad I did it, and I felt better.
Your day goes better, doesn't it?
It so does. It gives you that just that. mental clarity, the
Yeah.
accomplishment. The other thing that I do, and there's a book written about it, is I make my bed every day.
Oh yeah, bed. I love making my bed. Even if the rest of a room is a mess, it's like the couch. There's something about like making sure our throw blankets are a certain way, but the bed has to be made. The rest of
Yep.
the room, like a bomb went off, I don't care. But that has to be done. Beds have to be made. It's so funny. It's true. And
It
it does.
is true. Well, Admiral McCraven wrote a book called Make Your Bed, and he actually did a commencement speech. I think it was for University of Texas. It's a 17-minute video, and it's an amazing thing. And he talks about because he was a commander of the SEALs, and he talked about when he went through buds and all of this stuff, but he talked about making your bed. It's the first task of the day. And no
Yeah.
matter how bad your day is, you come back to a made
It's
bed
right. You completed something first thing in the morning.
first thing in the morning.
Yeah, about getting up, even like gratitude practice I was doing on the days where I keep chemo wiped me out and I really couldn't move. um I had a journal by the bed, and I would get up and I would write 3 things I was happy for, 3 things that I accomplished, right? So even though I was really, really down and out, I would read these things and I'd say, well, I'm really not doing so bad. I feel bad, but I'm really not doing bad at all. So that was nice to have. And I still have the journal by the bed, and yeah, I keep up with that. Yeah,
I
gratitude is
think that's huge. I'm glad you mentioned the gratitude
yeah,
journal. It was somebody had talked to me about it probably about a month ago, and I started doing it, and it does make a difference.
it does.
It does. It changes our focus, right? Because what are we doing? We're probably focusing on something negative,
Mhm.
something in the past, or something. And you could always find something good in no matter what it is. Like, I'm alive. Like, like I could move, I'm
Yeah,
breathing,
right,
I live in this country, or whatever it is.
right. I woke up this morning. Yeah.
My eyes opened. Like, that's huge. That is huge. So thank you for sharing that. You also mentioned something, and you touched on it when you were talking about yoga. And I've been hearing a lot of research on this, that it actually does work, is grounding.
Oh, I'm obsessed with grounding. So you don't think about it when you're little, right? Like little kids are so happy. Little kids are so happy all the time when they're outside.
Yeah.
And filthy, they're dirty.
Yeah.
They've no shoes on,
Yeah.
and they're in the dirt. They're covered in it. They're outside, and it's just like, and so yeah. So I started doing this thing where like, it doesn't even matter where I am, even if I'm at work and it's like lunchtime. Getting your shoes off and touching the ground, even if it's for 5 minutes, and just being outside. It sounds so quirky, but it's something so simple, and it doesn't take long either. It
You know,
changes.
it's funny. I follow a gentleman, Dave Asprey. He wrote the Bulletproof Diet, but he's into biohacking and all kinds of stuff. But he's really a nerdy, smart guy. He actually did, in one of his books called Superhuman, he talked about taking your shoes off, going outside, being with the ground. He does it when he travels. And you're right about the dirt. Something about the dirt.
About it, right? Yeah, I watch my 3-year-old every day. It's like I dress her up, she's all nice and neat. 5 seconds later, she's dirty, but she's got a smile on her face and she's happy. you know,
And it's all about the
it,
dirt, or
it's all about the dirt. Like it's all about being outside, and you feel free, right? You don't feel constricted. You're free flowing. You know, there's a lot. Yeah, I feel like more grounding techniques are coming out now. And you don't have to even go outside. I think people don't realize that you could ground yourself like inside too. Sometimes it's like you can use your 5 senses. So if you could wear like a favorite sweater, or you could smell something that reminds you of comfort, right? Sweaters, I don't know, there's something about a sweatshirt or a sweater when you put it on, you kind of feel like you're getting hugged, right? And then like
Yeah.
a favorite smell, favorite
They do
taste.
that with dogs with anxiety. We put
Oh yeah,
on our smaller dog. It's so
yeah.
funny. My girlfriend bought one of those like sweaters, and I'm not a big proponent of clothing dogs, right? So she did
Right.
it, right? So she put it on the dog. You guys will laugh about this. So the dog started being really mellow. Like she thought the dog was sick. Like that's like there was something wrong. She goes, I think something's wrong with Daisy. Like she won't do this, she won't do that. She was just really
Yeah.
like she looked depressed, like there was something wrong. So
Yeah.
one day out of nowhere, I took it off and like that, she was back. She goes, "Oh my God, you can't believe it!" But they do sell these
Oh yeah.
vests for
Thunderstorm, like like the selling for fireworks and thunderstorms, and it's yeah. Fortunately, my pit bull will still move an entire bed just to get underneath it because that's her. But yeah, no, there is something about like even your favorite blanket. Think about like once again back to little kids. I feel like that's another lesson is to calm yourself down, right? To chill out is like letting your inner child come out, right? Kids bring like, I mean, we're not going to walk around with binkies, right? But
sippy cups.
you have your favorite mug, you have your favorite blanket to wrap yourself in on a like a fall day when it's chilly, you know, that comfort. Like this is stuff that people need to bring back. We're on the go so often that we forget that it's okay to stop, smell the flowers, whip out your favorite sweatshirt, like cuddle up with it and just say, I'm okay, I'm in a safe place, you know, and just calm yourself down. It keeps you happy. It keeps your endorphins going. And that's what you want.
100%. I thought that's great. You know, kids are teachers. We've forgotten how to be kids sometimes, right?
Fun out of life. We need to bring it back.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the other thing that, we were talking about was, obviously we're not minimizing anybody that's feeling really down or depressed. You should seek medical help and professional help for sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big proponent of cognitive behavioral therapy. I just think that it really works, to talk out some things, to really make some shifts and really get some of the feelings out. What's your thought on that?
So I reached out several times for therapy, mental health. I- it's therapy, but I like to say just mental health in general, because you can be fine, everything could be okay, and you don't know what triggers you. So, and you don't know what is going to come back that you thought you let go of. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's when you need that. You need somebody, you need a therapist, you need a counselor to actually sort out what's going on. This isn't, it's, you need that person, that other person to really know what's going on with you. They're trained. This is what, this is what they do.
Yeah.
It makes such a huge difference. It saves lives. This isn't,
It changed my life. It really did. I have been, I have used cognitive, I talked to somebody and they use a internal family system, which I love, IFS. There's a lot of talk about it on podcasts for people, with anything, but it's so great just talking to somebody. I think and I don't want to cause any controversy, but I think, we live in a medicated quick fix thing, and not that medicines don't work, but I remember I'm a nurse. I worked at a psych area, and a lot of the doctors, I would talk to them. They're like, this is just to really, the medicine's really just to help crisis mode. But you really need, I think, and they said this, is really talk to somebody and start to work through and understand. And I think it's a life changer if you go. I know
Yeah,
there's huge stigmas about mental illness and mental health, but like throw that out. I think actually it's starting to shift a little bit.
it
And
is.
I think anybody and everybody could benefit from some sort of counseling at some
Oh,
point.
yeah. Like these companies, I work for a big company and they have an employee, it's a employee assistance program, EAP it's called. And, there's a number you just call and they figure out what's going on and they'll set you up with someone. It's private. Nobody knows what's going on. But I've shared my experiences with people who I thought, hey, like this is something that should be worked on. And we're health coaches and we know if something's out of our scope, like you just lead that person to where they need to be, because it really starts here, right? Like a lot of issues with your body, if it's it could either be from your gut, which is your second brain, right?
Right.
Or your brain. So to keep everything aligned and happy, you really need to work on every area, mentally, physically. It all has to come together. Um, you know, the mindset part of that and being positive will keep you healthy, as long as there's not another issue, that you have to worry about. Nobody asks for a mental issue that's out of your control.
Hmm.
There's wrong with getting help for that. That's, if you have a broken bone, you're going to go to an orthopedist and you're going to have it set. Well, not that, and you're not broken mentally. It's could be just a chemical that's off. You just don't know. And there's nothing wrong with getting that help. And once you get in that positive mind frame, no matter which way you have to go about doing it, everything just follows. Your life is just happier and it's easier to make decisions and it's easier to really, obtain the goals that you're setting for yourself. But you need to be in that positive headspace first.
100%. I agree. I agree. I'm a huge proponent and I've recommended to anybody. Um, and I think it's something that, the stress in our mind affects our body.
It,
I'm a firm believer in that. At a young age, I had gotten some help that I needed, thank God.
yeah,
And I could have gone down a different road. And also, I'm a huge proponent of support groups, that are beneficial. I know, whatever challenge there's with the way we are now with social media, like there's so many amazing groups. Sometimes if I have a guest on that's a brain tumor survivor, I'll post a podcast in there and all that. Or I have other groups that I post a podcast in that may help somebody else. And it's 24 hours a day. Like I see people post in some of my groups, like I'm really having a hard time with this. And I just feel like it's great having some different support for people that have been through very similar things. Would you agree?
oh, I totally agree. I love seeing, people who have dealt with all different types of illness, not just cancer, come back and then they're running these like marathons. Yeah, so I walked 3 miles today. How's your marathon going? But it's like it's incredible to watch these people, right? And like you can't help but to smile. Like you're looking at them like, I mean, it's amazing. And it actually, a lot of times when I was down in the dumps, I would look at these groups, right? And I would see these girls and they're like running 4 miles. And I'm like, oh, wait, they're only like maybe a month ahead of me treatment wise. So, it actually gave me hope, lots of hope that like in 6 weeks, that's where I'm going to be.
Yep.
Oh, oh, I loved it. I love that. I still check in, several groups. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even mom group I check in with, because parenting is just hard in general. And it's
Yeah.
just nice get the ideas of other people who have like one small trick that make your life so much easier. One tiny, tiny thing makes everything that much easier and happier, less to worry about.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing too, and I know we talked about breath work, but what goes with that is mindfulness, meditation, and prayer, right? So we're going from group, like I totally believe in mindfulness and prayer, depending on whoever's spiritual component. I think, it's funny. I share this story. People think I'm crazy. I don't know if people think I'm crazy, but what I did was I honestly, when I was first diagnosed, I thought like I could potentially die.
Right.
So, so I was like, oh my God, let me deal with the worst case scenario and I'll work backwards. That's kind of how I deal with things sometimes, right? So I actually researched and I saw a documentary on people that had near-death experiences, right? So
Mhm.
I did that. And then I also watched like Son of God, I'm a Christian, and the Bible series on the History Channel. And
Nice.
I was just like, oh my God. And some of my, I have a good friend who's, he's really into the Bible and church and Christian. And I said to him, I said, when I watched that, the Bible series, I was like, there was a tremendous amount of suffering like
Oh, it,
throughout time. And it still goes on, but we think that we automatically should be happy all the time, or
mhm.
that is it. But I think it's in our struggles where the strength and we draw upon resources is found. What's your take on? I know I said a whole lot there.
Yeah, no, but I totally get it. So I'm like in that spiritual kind of way of looking around spiritually now, more so than I was before I was sick, right? Um, because it's that outlook of there's something bigger than you and everything happens for a reason. And um, there's a positive spin on this. So you could go down the rabbit hole and think, okay, this is my end, right?
Yeah.
Or when you get yourself to that positive mindset, you're like, okay, well, how can I take this and help other people? Because I'm not the first and I won't be the last going through this.
All right.
So, and so you're looking for the higher powers to really get you going and guidance. Like you need guidance. And so, yeah, so you turn toward, I feel like, excuse me, you turn more towards the spirituality part of it. Like, okay, show me your ways. Like, what are you teaching me? What am I going to learn from this experience? And what am I going to give back to everybody else? Yeah, totally get that.
Give
Totally.
back. That was huge for me. Health coach, and I do that, but I've now changed a little bit too, where what this taught me was like, I'm a friend of mine said, what do you think about? And I thought about like, what am I doing here on
Mhm.
this planet, right? Like, am I doing God's work? When you know that you potentially could have that end point, right? Like, because I don't think anybody thinks about it. And why should, unless you are faced with it,
Right.
real time, right? And I was like, I said to him, I said, am I doing God's work? And I said, are you? And I said, I feel like I am, but I could do more. And the question comes up is, what can you what type of God's work are you doing? And I think people are like thinking about purpose and how they help people or how their mission. I think that's what it is. And I've been really big on what is our mission. I think a lot of times I kind of did some inner work when I felt down. I felt like there was a question on where my mission and what my plan was.
Yeah, I think it's making the world a happier place. You know,
Yeah, for
we've
sure.
through traumatic experiences, COVID being one of them, right? We just lost how many people to COVID. And
Yeah.
I mean, how many years before this was it the Spanish influenza that was the last, like, you know, all out losing how many people? So yeah, you go through trauma like that. And then I feel like there's always a rainbow after the storm kind of, right, deal. So I feel like that's why we have these experiences, and we're the people that need to turn around and say, okay, well, we're going to start building this rainbow because the storm is over. And that's where we are. And that's what we need to do. And that's how we're giving back, because it's time to be happy. It's time to change things around again. Yeah. So, and without like all these positive practices, how do you do that? Right. So,
Yeah. And I think it's good to mention, right? Like there's a lot of talk about like toxic positivity, right? Like people are like, yeah, like we need to be bliss all the time or put on this happy face. I think just getting real with it and kind of digging into it. Like that's really what I did. Like I said, what is this teaching me? What's going on here, rather than either try to rub it away or push it aside and just like, let me, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. That doesn't work.
no,
It's doing that. And so the other side of that too is I recommend people invest in a coach. And depending on what area, I think a niche type of coach, a health coach, or if you're trying to do something specific. I think sometimes if somebody says I'm a life coach, but it's just, what does that mean? There's just so much with that.
right.
And
You need
I
X. Yeah.
you need specifics. And I actually, there's a coach, he's now a good friend of mine. We talk as kind of colleagues. And I really started to look at, and this was before the brain tumor was, I was trying to help more people, and what was getting in the way, and it was my habits of thinking. And so I took a test that was great, and there was some coaching around it. And that coach, now we're like friends, and we connect deeply. And I think getting a coach is a good idea, you
I
know.
really I have a couple of them actually. And I still talk to, I have like a little group of colleagues that, you know, I speak to, and people come to you and they want your help. You're not always a great fit for everyone, right? Like, no,
Sure.
not everybody gets along in the sandbox kind of deal, believe me. So it's easy. It's better for you to be like, hey, listen, great talk, but I have a friend who can really help you out, right? So I don't want people to be afraid that they're gonna, call these coaches and it's not for them, and they're afraid to say, I don't know if this is a fit or perfect fit, because you want the best, you want the healthiest, and you know, I think it's essential. I said this to a few of my doctors, like health coaching is kind of the segue in between treatments. I felt for my cancer treatment alone, right? You're waiting for different diagnoses. You're waiting for test results to come back, and in the meantime, you're sitting there in your own mind, right? And so having that coach to say, well, Nick, you could really stop drinking, 3 cups of coffee a day and go back to one. You need that. Once again, you need that person that's outside looking in saying, okay, well, you think you're doing all the things, right? But
Yeah.
you're not. So, even as a health coach, you need a health coach.
You,
There's a,
you need a coach because there's blind spots, right? Like
yeah,
we come from our perspective, and there's things that we may not be seeing, but you have to, like, a coach isn't somebody that's going to, is not a counselor or somebody who's going to tell you what to do. It's really to guide you and to
right.
help you. You got to show up for it, for
You,
sure.
but you need the cheerleader or
You do.
coach, right?
Yeah.
Really need it. You need that one person who's going to say, all right, well, you're doing great, but I know you better, and you can do that one more, whatever it is. Or, you can switch the one habit that's blocking you from opening up all these doors. But you need that one person to do it. You do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just touched on it too. And I think this is another kind of goes in the same way with the coach, but it's who you spend your time with, right? Like it,
Is
Tony Robbins 101 is like you become the 5 people you spend the most time with. And
that.
I've noticed it too when I'm around people that are more stressed and struggling in life, it's like it affects you for sure. You could, and it's important to really monitor or pay attention to who you're spending time with, you
Oh,
know?
true. 100%. I agree with that. 100%. It really is true. That's how you learn to set boundaries, right? Because everybody runs into people that you can love this person more than life itself, but if they're not good for you and you don't have boundaries, it's not it's a fail.
It,
Right.
it,
So, and if you're looking to get, happier or a more meaningful life, then you want to be with the people who want the same things, something similar to what you want in life, because it keeps you on that track. When you're kind of fighting the tide and you don't really have support around you, it's really hard to stay afloat.
it is like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you're around somebody who's just an inspiration. And when you're with them, you just raise up. You're like, oh my God. And you could tell those people energetically. You're like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience. You're like, oh my God. And you want to be around them more.
Feel a better person being around them, right? It
It,
does. You want the best you can be. It's important.
it is. It is. So we covered a bunch today, a bunch of kind of strategies and methods and things to really help with some of the positivity. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about, or you think we got some of the highlights?
I think this is a great start, and I think it's a good way of showing people what they need, what kind of help they possibly need. You don't always, it's not always I think a lot of people get let down when they go to the doctor's office because, it's doctors don't have time to do this stuff, right? They really don't. It's sad, but it is what it is. And that's why there's all these services. So, check out what you need and see what works for you and try it. You're right. I mean, I'd rather try and see, maybe it's not going to work out than to never have tried and then you're still stuck in that same spot. So,
Absolutely. Get out and see what works. And the one thing I'll mention, and it's going to be a whole new topic on its own because, and I think it's foundational, is definitely nutrition and diet and nutrition, which is super foundational. There's a lot of mixed thoughts out there, but I think you can't negate what you put in your body. And I want to end with that because
yeah,
it's a whole nother topic for
you
sure.
are, yes, pretty much.
You are what you eat.
Are what,
So,
yeah,
well, Nikki, thank you so much for hopping on and kind of
yeah,
sharing and talking with me about some of the strategies that we both have used. Um, and we'll definitely have you back at
yeah.
some point and keep on sharing your message and
Well,
helping others in the same way.
yeah, you too. Thank you. I love this.
Thank you.